We'll get started. Everybody ready? We'll get started. We've got recording going. Great. Welcome to the council meeting for the 28th of September, 2023. We'll start with Karakia. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, feel free to join in. Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga, kia mā kina, ki uta, kia mā taratara, ki tai, e he aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huha, he hohu, tihei, mauri ora.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Chris. All right, councillors, we've got a pretty reasonable agenda today, so hopefully we can make some quick progress as we get through it. So we'll start with apologies. I know we've got apologies for lateness from Councillor Kneebone and Councillor Mahuta. Any other apologies to be noted? If not, do I have a mover? Councillor Marr, second Councillor Hughes. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, confirmation of the agenda on page 2. I have a mover, Councillor Strange, and a second in Councillor Hodge. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any disclosures of interest? Any new disclosures or disclosures with relation to any agenda items today? None to note. All right, we'll move on to confirmation of the council minutes from 31 August 2023. This is on page 6 of your agenda, item 5.1. Anything to note, or do I have a mover to accept those minutes? Councillor Nicol, second, and Councillor Graff. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, then we've got minutes of committees reporting to council. So this is confirmation and receipt of the following committees: the Environmental Performance Committee, 15 August, Finance and Services Committee, the open minutes only, 16th of August, Climate Action Committee, 29 August, Strategy and Policy Committee, 6th of September. Sorry, are we doing all of these in one? Is that all covered in there? Okay. And then we're also receiving the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee minutes from the 25th of August and noting all decisions that have been made under delegated authority.
Happy to move those as a block, Madam Chair.
It's moved in Councillor Marr, seconded in Councillor Downard. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we've got 3 committees that have recommendations for council consideration. So the first one is the Finance and Services Committee. So we're on page 25, just so people can follow along. Finance and Services Committee has put forward a recommendation. The council approved the budget carryover and adjustment requests as noted in that motion. Councillor Hughes, as the chair of that committee, did you want to comment to this, or are you happy to move it? Sorry, just need you to use the mic there.
Sorry, Madam Chair. The recommendation is from our finance team leader. I supported it at the committee level, as did the rest of the committee, and can recommend to council the actions as detailed and in the recommendations to be adopted.
Great. We've got a mover in Councillor Hughes, a second in Councillor Strange. Any other questions? Councillor Smith?
Comment, Madam Chair. In my comments on the LTP workshop yesterday, my concern about the carry forwards, this is about 25 million up there. And I would just urge councillors to think about, that sizable amount of carry forwards, and we need to reset the program going forward rather than having this level of continuing carry forward. So it's just an observation rather than
Yes.
a comment on the motion itself.
And I believe that was raised at the Finance Committee as well.
Yes,
That-
I absolutely support that, and that suggestion was put to the team to adopt it, and I'm sure they'll come back with an answer to that. Councillor Smith.
Did you want to make any comment to that, Mr. Sa'i?
The only comment, probably similar to what I made yesterday, we understand the issue. ELT's been talking about, what's the right size for that part of the business instead of trying to carry over and continue to do more. Noting that we've had a big injection of those, the funds from central government and shovel-ready projects that sort of put a lot on top of that directorate. With the emergency related events early in the year, it has resulted in a lot of carry forwards. Point was well made yesterday, and I think that's something that we're going to be probably wanting to have a look at, and maybe a discussion next week, as was discussed as well, maybe around that part of the business.
Okay, I think that concern has been noted and like I say, raised both in that committee and here today. So I'm sure that management will take note of that and act on that. All right, we've got a mover and a seconder for that recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, now we've got the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee. This is on page, well, the item we're actually looking at is on page 36. And part of this B item is addressed in a later agenda item, that being item 7.2 with regard to the balloons over Waikato. So to either you, Dave, or you, Chris, to explain how you would like us to work through this recommendation, given that set of circumstances.
Good morning, members. What we have here is a recommendation from the Future Proof Public Transport Subcommittee that is broken into a number of parts. The motion that you see on screen, we're suggesting that the first part is dealt with by council at this time, as we normally would do when we take recommendations through the minutes, and that we note the recommendations from Future Proof regarding the Balloons Over Waikato event, and we will address that when the Balloons Over Waikato report is tabled later in the meeting. So effectively what we're looking for is to address part one of the resolution or motion, and part two will lie on the table until we reach that item later in the meeting.
So we'll go.
Thank you, Chair. So I think in terms of the first parts, in terms of Waikato Regional and Auckland Councils engaging on development of an interregional rail and passenger transport strategy, I understand, I'll just look to Phil King, that there's work on that already. And also note there might be an update on council being invited to Auckland Council to talk in the near future, Phil.
Yeah, Morena Koto. Yes, thank you, Chris. So the item there around the interregional rail and passenger transport strategy is included now within the scope of a VKT reduction study that the Future Proof Transport Working Group is now procuring from existing budget, and conversations are underway with Auckland Council to confirm the scope of that work. In terms of your second question, sorry, Chris.
Just we'd requested
Yes.
a meeting with Auckland Council, and I think that's been granted in the near future.
Correct. So yes, we've been invited to attend the Auckland Council Transport and Infrastructure Committee on the 19th of October and provide a short update to them on Te Huia. So that preparation is underway.
Councillor Strange, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I'm just happy to move it. Yeah, I'm really happy with the progress that we're making in this area. Noting that the strategy includes freight on rail as well, so alongside passenger transport.
All right, do we have a seconder? Second and Councillor Nicol. Okay, now I'm just seeing as the part two, we're leaving lie on the table. How do we pass this motion now then? Do we need to, is that what the wording needs to be?
As it appears on screen is correct, yes. If you put the motion down, it was to carry part 1A and B would be in effect passed. Part 2A and B pertaining to the balloons will lay on the table and we will address that later in the meeting.
Right. All right. So everybody clear on that? Great. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, now on to page 44. This is the Climate Action Committee. And this is with regards to a recommendation to approve the Climate Action Roadmap. Councillor Nicol, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a big thank you to the committee members who have worked on this studiously several times. It was in February, June and August. We've had workshops and covered it off in the committee meetings. And yeah, mindful that others have also contributed feedback and that I've encouraged everyone to have a look at it. It is a summary of our activities. It's a communications document to guide discussions amongst staff and learning, and as well for external parties, our iwi partners and our stakeholders to see our general direction. Being a communication tool, it's not financially binding, but it is very helpful, we've found in the past, and noting this is version 2, to communicate with others and hopefully partner with them on what is a collective effort. So yeah, thanks again to the committee and keen to move this one.
So we've got a mover and Councillor Nicol and Councillor Hodge. Second thing,
I'm
is there any?
just wondering
Councillor
about,
Graff?
yeah, just in regard to implementing the pathways, just the cost involved with that. Has it been presented?
I can talk to that in that any time that we make a decision to do something, it will be through the long-term plan or annual plan budget process. This one is a general direction of intention, but each time that a specific policy or activity is to go ahead, it needs to go through the full council as part of that budgeting process. So hence, this is more to let people know what we know so that they can do their planning, and for us to say, this is what we're up to, keen for you to work with us.
And as you said earlier, it doesn't commit us financially.
No, which we've learned over the past training as well, because we had
Yeah.
that discussion 3 years ago. Yeah, so it's just a helpful comms document, really.
And so it's done. It's completed. The cost of putting it together is completed.
That's my understanding.
Mhm.
It's mainly produced electronically,
Mm.
be available on the website. We'll have a couple of hard copies maybe, yeah. But that's right, the work's been done through the committee and this is the final step, just to approve it through council.
And again, it's a discussion document. This is what facilitates the conversations we have with communities, with ratepayers, with industry, with organizations across our region to, as much as we can, assure alignment and working in partnership to
Yeah.
achieve these
No-
directions.
Noting it's a complex topic that touches all those pathways, and so it's a nice way to bring it together for people who want to look at it all together. But we are doing work in so many parts of our organisation. This is just talking about how it fits together and in the greater context.
Councillor Downard?
Yeah, it's got 130 goals in it, so yeah, it's a pathway just for people. It's non-binding, so yeah. I'll happy to
Direction of
second it.
travel.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Aspiration.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other comments? Any other questions? If not, we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we now move on to our health and safety report. This is item 7.1 on page 55. And we've got Stu Brown. Strategy and policy was passed in the collective, sorry? Out here, Dave. Sorry.
Okay, I think the question is about the resolution, particularly on the Wharakawa coast, and that's, Dave, that's something that's on the agenda today. So Councillor Dunbar Smith, that's that was passed as a block with the resolutions made under delegation at the start of the meeting.
Good? Yep. All right. Stu, welcome. We're on page 55.
Thank you. Good morning. So wanted to draw your attention to a few things in the health and safety report. The first really is that national event with the unfortunate death of the 11-year-old child through Ruape Alpine lifts. I thought it was pertinent just given the recent talk from Tompkins Wake on how we operate as a PCBU and with our contractors. Obviously with our relationship with GoBus, it's quite timely that this has come through. We have been working closely with GoBus for quite a period of months now, just around their health and safety, incident investigation, driver training, and bus safety. You'll have seen through the report there all of the different bits and pieces that we have been working on. With me coming on board with the organisation and working with Mark Tamara and now Phil King joining us, we're keen to ensure that this relationship is maintained and that we work together in partnership with GoBus to ensure that the drivers are adequately trained and we have a safe operation. It's a particular interest looking at nationally at this. Driver safety is a key concern with the assaults going on across the country. And we're trying to look at that holistically and work in with different councils, for example, in Canterbury or in Auckland, around the mitigations that they're putting in place to ensure the safety of their drivers, whether that's removing cash from buses or putting in physical barriers. So we have a watch and brief and a true partnership happening there, which is really important, and it's going well. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. Moving through, you'll see then the incidents. We've had 34 in the past month. And there were a few of those that were, again, threats of aggression and violence. And one of them was out on farm. And I just wanted to note that that hasn't been added to the security register because the team that were out there being trained in de-escalation, very competent and understanding what was going on in the situation, actually were able to help the individual who was struggling basically with some mental health issues. And they were able to support the person to contact their family and get some support and feel that there is no further threat there. So that was a good result, and we helped them in progress. And moving on then, we had a spill event in the back of one of the utes with some herbicide that slid across and was punctured and leaked out. That's been a good thing to look at our process around dealing with that and the transportation of the chemicals, and that's been shared throughout the organisation across the different directorates where relevant. So that's been something to note. So those were the key points that I wanted to draw your attention to. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions? Councillor Strange?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Stu, for your report. Yeah, just to touch on what you talked about with GoBus. Yeah, thanks for that level of comfort that you've eyes on that as well. Yeah, I recently spoke to people at Waka Kotahi as well about the national conversation that's going on, and also met with Phil and Trudy, just to get that comfort myself that you know that we are on top of this. And yeah, I'm really comforted from what I've heard and the conversations that are going on nationally as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Just on a different point, I know just from what I've been hearing around the room in recent weeks as well, staff, it's great that staff have had de-escalation training. Just wondering if that would be available for councillors as well, just with the public mood out there. Yeah, would that be an option?
Certainly, yeah, we can certainly organise that. If anybody would like to attend it, we can set that up.
Thank you.
Thanks for raising that, Councillor Strange. I think that if we can make that available to councillors, that it would be helpful. I think a number of us are aware of the temperature in our communities
Yes.
and wanting to make sure that when we do interact with our communities, we get the best out of that exchange, both for us as councillors, but also ensuring that our communities have a method to be heard,
Yes.
but that everybody feels safe in the exchange. So I think that would be really, really helpful and really good to note how that de-escalation training played out in the incident that you described, and utilizing that training to not just make the situation safe, but also to support the individual that was involved in that and ensure that they have methods or a pathway forward so that they're taken care of too. I think that that's a really nice holistic way of
It is,
looking
yeah.
at our interactions and recognizing that when our staff go out, that sometimes we don't know what we're walking into. And sometimes it has to do with the branding on our vehicles. Sometimes it doesn't. And being able to identify those situations and ensure that everybody stays safe and comes home intact is fantastic. So well done. Any other comments? Or yes, Councillor
Right,
Hodge?
here we go. I'm sure I asked this before around the health and safety is very good on the safety perspective, but I don't see a lot on the health of our staff. For instance, how do some of these safety issues impact on them mentally? I don't expect you to be a doctor or anything, but there's really nothing in these reports around the health side of your health and safety. So I'd like to ensure that we are looking after the health of our people within WRC, and somehow, especially around mental health, because it's so prominent these days, disabilities that can be caused from some of the things that happen. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
just to highlight it, that I'd like to see something around how
Yes.
we are processing or progressing with the health side of health and safety.
Yes, no,
Shall we?
that's a really good point. Thank you. Quite timely as well. I had a meeting yesterday with our EAP services provider, and historically people have viewed EAP as a counselling service, but it's a much broader offering now, and it's really about being proactive around mental health and general health and well-being. And they have quite a comprehensive package now, and it's more of a overarching cultural positive perspective. So we're going to be working with them to get that, out to all of our staff so that they know that it's more than just a counselling service. So I'll report back on that through the reporting over the next month or two and let you know how we're getting on there. But thank you very much. That's a really good point.
In terms of the EAP feedback and statistics, does that, if I recall correctly, that normally gets reported through, is it risk and assurance?
It does, yeah, it
Yeah.
does. So we're
Yeah.
sitting, I think, at about 11 or 12% utilization. It sort of sits between 10 and 15% across the country. So we're happy, but we could utilize that more. So that's kind of about the education piece and showing the offering that's there. So
Right. So if counselors wanted to see any of that information, they could go back to some of the risk and assurance
Yeah,
agendas
that's
and
right.
see some of the historical
That's right.
information. But taking on board what Councillor Hodge is raising, it would be good to bring that back to full council, just to remind everybody of what that service entails
Yes.
and what we're seeing in terms of its ability to support our staff as we go forward. Councillor Marr.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Stu, I raised at our last meeting the access of councillors to the risk register, and I did get feedback that we need to go back through democracy. I just wonder, just for councillors in the room, that is the process that if you have an address or something you're going to, and there's a concern, you need to take that back through democracy prior. We don't actually have access to the register as such.
Yeah, so I linked in with Natasha on that. I think she's your contact for that one. I think that there might have been a question, could councillors have access to the whole schedule of people that are on that register? And unfortunately, from a privacy perspective, we can't give out the whole list of people. But certainly if you do intend to go out to a particular location, more than happy to share that with you. And Natasha will be able to do that for you ASAP before you go out. So, yeah.
Stu, can I just check process there? So if councillors are going out to a site, especially if it's a site that's unfamiliar to them, they should probably check in first, like staff would, and check that there are no security concerns over that site.
That's right.
Councillor Smith.
Do you link known locations and persons to others who are associated with those? So if you have a moderate sort of a person, but they have some nutter friends, yeah, nutters, so I'll look at the camera and say nutters, that is also collected and made available. So we could be going to something that is, you know, a non-event, so to speak, but because of the associations. Is that sort of level of detail kept? And if not, why not?
No, it's not. No. Basically, if there's an event at a particular location, there's a workflow to work through to give us the severity of that, and that triggers whether it gets added to the security register or not, and how significant it is. Unfortunately, just with the number of associations people can have, it's not possible to look into every known person that they would be associated with and where they may be located. So unfortunately, we can't have that level of detail.
Well, I know what I would do, but I'm not going to say it in public. I would do what you. I would use the system, but if I met a situation, I would deal with it.
I'm just wondering if just considering our just previous discussion around de-escalation training, if part of support for counselors would be perhaps you or someone in your team helping us to raise our own awareness of the different types of situations we might find ourselves in, and what are the questions to ask, because there's one issue if you're going to a private residence and we've got a method that you've identified, but we also often get invited to public meetings or you know, addresses that might not necessarily have been a registry, but considering some of the levels of concern amongst our community members, those events might present some things we need to be aware of before we go into those as well. So perhaps we can support counselors on being prepared around assessment of those risks. I think that there might be something there for us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the de-escalation training is fantastic in that regard, because it talks about the different locations, whether you may go out to a farm or whether you might go out to a public event where you're in an enclosed space, and how you set that up, and you know, the questions that you might ask. All of that is covered in that de-escalation training, so it could be quite valuable for most, if not all, of to attend if you wished.
Great.
Mm.
All right. Anything else for this item or for Stu?
Remember that most people who contact counsellors want something from us, so they're not likely to be aggressive immediately. If they,
You mean in the first instance?
as much as they could be.
Yeah.
If they want something, they generally are reasonable to start with.
I have found pretty much every contact that I've had in the 4 years that I've now been in council have been very reasonable and very pleasant. But we just always need to make sure that we're prepared. And if I know that there have been conversations around the regional sector with different regional councils engaging additional levels of security. And so it is something that is paramount to our local government positions, and so something we need to be aware of and prepared for. So thank you very much. Sue, oh, did you want?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could just suggest, so what I think I'm hearing, Stu, is not just a de-escalation training, but maybe an opportunity for councillors to come and share some of the experiences and issues. I'm pretty mindful that some meetings, it's not just sort of physical, it's the way people talk, and different people take things different in terms of, their sensitivity to how things are said to them. So it might be embarking on a wider conversation so we can provide other opportunities as well.
Yep, certainly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for that report, Stu. We've got a mover in Councillor Marr and a second in Councillor Hughes. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. Oh, and I got a thumbs up from Councillor Clarkson online. Hello, Bruce. Good use of the emojis. All right, we'll move on to our next item. This is item 7.2. This is the balloons over Waikato that was left lying on the table from our future-proof public transport subcommittee minutes. We're on page 62. We're joined by Phil King. Welcome, Phil. Did
Good
you
morning.
want to speak to this or go directly to Phil? All right.
Good morning, councillors. So I propose to take the report as read, but perhaps provide a short context before we open for questions. So the Future-Proof Public Transport Subcommittee on the 25th of August discussed this item and was in support of the staff recommendation, which was to proceed with a service for the Nightglow in 2024 with a ticket price similar to the event structure for 2023. Within that meeting, there was a request that when that report came to council as a section B, that we provided more context and went through the 3 fare scenarios that were developed ahead of the 2023 event so that you could see the full costings and look at all of the options that were considered. So this report is intended to provide that detail to you. And in doing that, I have also provided some demand assessment. So as cost goes up, demand may reduce. So within the table in the report, you'll see assessments of 100% occupancy, 80% occupancy, and 60% sale of the tickets. So that's maybe a context. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. From reading the report, it's my understanding that what is being asked is that Waikato regional ratepayers subsidise to the tune of $10,000 a trip by Te Huia from Auckland to bring Aucklanders to the Waikato and return them using Waikato ratepayers' money. Is that correct?
Yes, but
Yes.
but the context is that
yes on this here and no on that here. So
that is the proposition. The support in 2023 was based on the value to the Waikato region of the event and bringing those people to the event in the Waikato region. So that was what led to the support in 2023.
So absolutely clear, we are being asked to use Waikato ratepayers' money to bring Aucklanders to subsidise a train, which we've got to run twice without anybody in it to get it up there empty, and then to bring it back for the next morning empty as well.
That's only under option 3, or sorry, point 3 under the recommendations, option 1.
Yeah. So I'm just
So
wondering.
option 1 is a subsidized. Option 2 is full recovery.
Correct.
Which there would be no subsidization. Have I got this correct?
That is correct.
Right.
And that's aligned with a policy that's included in the regional public transport plan.
Okay, I'll just say I'm not in favour of having any ratepayer support, bring people in from out of the region.
But so just to be clear, we've got a choice. It's either the subsidized model, which is what we did last time, or full fare recovery.
Those are the two recommended, option 1 and option 2 that are in the recommendations. The
Right.
the third option that was assessed was to offer a fare lower than the public transport fare. But based on the 100% demand that there was for tickets in 2023, we haven't recommended that as an option for your consideration.
Right. And these were completely sold out last time.
Yes.
How quickly was it sold out?
Relatively quickly, actually.
Relatively.
And those tickets were all taken by Aucklanders, but there was interest because the event in Hamilton was smaller than previous years and it was by ticket. That we did see a few people from Hamilton that attempted to buy a train ticket to get into the event here, but those people were captured and refunded, and then those tickets were resold to Aucklanders. So there was significant interest.
Significant interest. Significant interest at $31.80.
Single, yes.
Yep. Nice. All right. Ooh, lots of lights. Look at it. It's a Christmas tree. What do we got? Councillor Graff. So just order, I've got Councillor Graff, Councillor Hughes, Councillor Marr, Councillor Strange, Councillor Cookson. Councillor Graff.
So this is a run on top of other schedules, special run.
Yes.
Yep. So in regard to the 400 possible tickets maximum, who gets these tickets? Is it friends of councillor? You know, who gets to know first the tickets are available? How is it marketed? Thanks.
So for the 2023 event, the Balloons Over Waikato website included an event page for this, and there was a requirement for everybody who attended to purchase a ticket. And for most people in the Waikato, that ticket was free. But at the same time, there was an option to purchase a train ticket there, and people then went to the Tikitech website and purchased a ticket that way.
And so the Balloons Over Waikato night, is that a free entry?
Yes, but in 2023, because
Okay.
the venue moved, it became a free ticketed event as opposed to
Yep.
anybody.
So it's only been one previous run of the train, right?
Yes, the event didn't occur through COVID.
Yeah. 3 trips empty. No way of sending people to Auckland for a cheap holiday just to.
So we
Fill it
run
for a weekend?
We run a single return on every Saturday.
Okay.
For 2023, there was because the trains are located in Hamilton, the train went to Auckland and picked people up to bring them back. I have made a comment somewhere in the report that one option could be for one of those trips to be an additional public trip, and if that were to occur, we would sell normal tickets for that service, and that would reduce the impact of the event subsidisation.
Okay, thanks for the moment. Thanks.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Phil, just a couple of questions. You mentioned about the economic value to the Waikato from the running of the train. Was that independently assessed last time? And if so, do we know what the economic value was? Do we know what the carbon cost is of running this train up and back and running it empty? And does that align with the Commissioner Council policy of minimising the carbon footprint for every activity we participate in? And, have we considered the use of buses, both in terms of the economic cost and also the carbon cost? Yep.
So the economic assessment that occurred ahead of the decision in 2021, I think, to support this train in 2023, was presented to the Tahuia governance group. It was on the basis that people from Auckland were attending this event, and that there would be a benefit to the economy and the climate of them coming to the event in a means other than the private car. In terms of the role of rail, we know that the emissions from a train journey are offset when there are more than 55 people on board, and we know that that occurs on about 70 to 80% of our services every month, every day. For this event being sold out, there was a net positive gain in terms of reduced carbon based on the ticket sales, but also the number of people that travelled on that night. So we're offsetting people that were coming from Auckland to this event in Hamilton in the Waikato and offering them this option. In terms of whether the train decision could be replaced by a bus decision, that hasn't been something that's been considered at this point. Mainly because the original decision was by the Te Huia governance group at the time and it didn't consider other options.
You've got a supplementary. Okay, just so I need to get Chris back a red light here. So I've got Warren, Angela, and Robbie, if I can, and you and Chris, or sorry.
Thanks.
Clyde
Well,
again.
I don't want to be pedantic on this, but you suggested the economic evaluation was done prior to the event in 2021. My experience is that you do economic evaluations after the event, after you've seen what the benefit is to the community. So that was the point of that question. So the answer is it hasn't been done. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Marr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple of things, Phil. I like the idea that we are going to expose Aucklanders to a service, to this Te Huia service. I don't like the idea of option one that our region's going to pay for it. Second comment, have the sponsors of this event being approached for any sort of subsidy on the tickets? I mean, they're a multi-million-dollar company. There's a question. Do we have the ability to put more than, and I understand it's 200 people per trip, do we have the ability to have another carriage? That's not something I know. And that's about it for the moment.
So recommendation 3B indicates a keenness to continue working with the event organisers and other funding sources to reduce the funding shortfall, and that conversation continues. At this point, there hasn't been a conversation about a direct contribution from the event organisers. We could add more carriages to the extent that we have to balance this service against the public service that will be running on that day. So we'd have to make sure we had that service able to operate as a public service as well as this. But we could potentially add one or two even carriages.
And just really quickly, the likelihood with the timing of these runs, is it likely that the empty trips would be seen as favourable for someone to use? I'm not sure what time. I take it we're coming down and going to be here in the evening and going back late. So
certainly the up from here to Auckland would be attractive. It would be late morning, early afternoon. The return from Auckland back to Hamilton after we've taken people back from this event would be well into the early hours of the morning. So,
yeah, thank you.
Councillor Strange.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Phil, for your work on this. If I recall back to 3 years ago, 3 years ago, when Balloons Over Waikato first approached the Te Huia governance group, the group was really keen for a number of reasons. You know, we've got a train, we've got an asset, other people using it makes sense to maximise use of that asset, and also to like previous speakers have already said about supporting local events and to some extent the local economy. If I recall back to the committee discussion a few weeks ago, there was talk about offering an extra Saturday trip, making use of the dead run as a one-off, and staff did say that that would be an option. There was feedback as well from after last year's event that the timing of bringing Aucklanders down wasn't as conducive as it could have been to supporting the wider economy. So just wondering if we could look at that, making use of other ways to support the local economy, either linking them up with Hamilton Gardens or other things that we've got on offer in the Waikato. But yeah, in the regional public transport plan, it is one of our goals as well to support people who do want to charter the services. Previously, we have been in discussion as well with Field Days about the possibility of using Te Huia to support Aucklanders again coming down to access local Waikato events. So in my opinion, it is a positive thing. However, as other people have said, asking our ratepayers to subsidise to that level is not quite a good look. So, which is why the committee last time added B in to the recommendation that we look to reduce the funding shortfall as much as possible. So yeah, I'd like staff to go away and work with the organisers to see if we could reduce that a little bit more. So I've asked Dave to put that onto option 2. Yeah, noting that the event was really well supported last time as well. That's about all. Thank you.
Would you, I'm just taking note of it because I remember the conversation around the timing of it and getting people down here earlier so that they might enjoy a broader range of the hospitality that we have here in the mighty Waikato. Could we add that to that option too, as a just to ensure that that is explored, and perhaps even if we looked at a different timing for bringing them down, then that empty route going to Auckland might even suit better. Now, I do recognize that there's time slots on the rail, and I get that might make it a little bit difficult, but I'm just thinking in terms of getting the best outcome for this region with a bit of tweaking of the service.
So there are always a range of options and opportunities and variables here, and what I've attempted to present to you is the maximum costs, the maximum subsidy that would be required. We did talk to the event organisers in preparing the report about whether there would be a way of packaging a day for people who came down on the train, and their perspective was that it would need to be packaged as something for people to choose to opt into. And on that basis, we probably need a cost associated with that day, whether it's a trip to a restaurant or a trip to the gardens or a trip to the zoo or something. But then the view of the organisers, and they sure would be happy to talk to this as you wish, was that would potentially mean that somebody who was using the service would have to sign up to a package that included several items. And while from the event organiser's perspective, it was focused on the night glow, someone may or may not want to go to the other offer that was on the table as part of that package, and that would make things complicated. The alternative is that the train just arrives early, people do their own thing, and then they make their own way to the event. And the challenge with that and then getting them together to get back on the train in the evening is that we lose some of the ability to support the people who have arrived on the train to get to somewhere and get back safely. So if people walk off from the station and make their own plans, we run the risk of losing them at the end of the evening, perhaps.
Thank you for that. Just wanting to clarify in adding the continue to work with Balloons Over Waikato to find other funding sources to reduce the funding shortfalls as much as possible. With the $70 fare, there is no funding shortfall. Is there avenue and is there time for us to explore that 0.7 and then revisit the cost? I essentially, I guess what I'm thinking is that with option 2, we protect ourselves from the downside of Waikato ratepayers subsidizing Auckland ratepayers, but it does allow us avenue to reduce that full fare recovery if there are other supporting options. I just want to make sure there's enough time if this was to pass to to explore that fully?
So your first point is the reason I didn't include that within the recommendation, because the costs are covered. But your point is well made. I think there is time. We need to go through timetable committee. We need to ensure that there's a roster that could support
Right.
this service. There are several aspects that we
There's
need to go
there's
through.
some hurdles to go through.
Once we have your decision in terms of your support for the service, we then have a process to work through. So that could be considered as part of that. But perhaps if your direction around the level of support you wish to provide or want to go for full cost recovery is set, then we have some
An
ways
envelope.
to reduce the cost to customer if we're able to.
Right. Okay. Councillor Cookson.
That was before.
Oh, no, I've got, so just so we're clear, I've got Councillor Cookson, Councillor Graff, Councillor Hodge, and then Councillor Smith again.
Okay. You want?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the event was sold out, obviously, So the issue that, and this was a major argument in our household, is I'm subsidising Aucklanders to come to the event and my own kids couldn't get to it because it was sold out. And I've got a real issue with that. So I want to stick with option 2, because if you're going to stop my kids from coming, you've got to pay the whole cost of getting there. Thank you.
It's really personalizing it, but. Councillor Graff.
Yeah, two things, please, Phil. So is the train running regardless? Is the train going up? So it's not going up, but it's a charter service. What I'm getting at is, okay. Yeah, okay. Charters. And just one other thing, is there any subsidised fares, buses, airplanes, choppers come for people who live in Thames, Tikawiti and Taupo to get to the balloons festival? Are there any other subsidies for people in other areas?
There are buses run from across Hamilton to the event, but I don't believe they go far outside the urban boundary.
So it's just Auckland that's may benefit.
The concept of a charter and the conversations back at the beginning were about the train.
Thank you.
Councillor Hodge.
I guess my corridor would be the same as Clyde, but what I wanted to say is that, like everybody else seems to be talking about, I'm not keen on subsidising anything past the station that is in the Waikato district, because there's three stations that belong to Waikato, and then there's a couple outside. I'm not sure how you would define that. So my problem is, as the councillor for a huge big region, and taking it outside to Te Huia, how does everybody else? Where do they fit in all this? Or when I say everybody else, I'm talking about all the other areas of Waikato. And where's Hamilton City Council in this? Because this is held in Hamilton. So there's, I'm not keen on upping subsidised things for anybody outside our region. The 3 stations within, ka pai tēnā. Anything outside, not me. Then how do you cater for all the other areas?
So just sorry, Councillor Hodge, just to make sure I'm clear though. So option 1 is the only one that has subsidization. So option 2 as a full fare recovery, that would be. It's full fare. There's no subsidizing that. No, there's no subsidy. So just checking in that we understand. Councillor Smith and then Councillor Marr and then Councillor Dunbar Smith.
So,
Councillor Smith.
Chair, I'd like to move something, and it's based on option 2. So, in my words, not necessarily, but if it's reflected in what's up there, is that we support the provision of a train to Huia for the Auckland community. That is at a non-subsidised. So, if it's the full adult $70 plus ticket or whatever, so that's fine. That and further that staff are encouraged, which I think is the bullet point 8, to work with others to reduce that fare, and if that's subsidies or whatever. And thirdly, that the trip to Auckland early in the day be a one-off public service that recovers sufficient money to add to the coffers of Te Huia, not to offset the other trip, but we have the opportunity to get Te Huia making some money over and above. So, yeah.
So just
so on that basis, does that make sense? And if so, so moved.
I just want to make sure our wording is right on that point 7. So this is where we're making the trip of the train from Hamilton up to Auckland to pick people up, making that available for to the public to buy your standard priced Te Huia ticket
As a one-off.
as a one-off. So is that, I just want to make sure that we're wording that correctly to reflect that.
So I reserve the right to just come back and comment if necessary, Madam Chair.
Have we, Bill, is that the wording? Is that how we
Staff and
would refer to that?
Be made publicly available is, I would suggest you change the wording to be offered as a public transport trip, which means that it then would be.
One-off public transport trip.
Yes.
Be offered as a one-off public transport trip.
That would mean that we are able to use the normal funding system for that service.
All right. So you,
I'd just like to make a couple of comments if I could, just to help the discussion. One is that if you were to go for the option as suggested here, and it wasn't fully subscribed and there wasn't any other event funding for it, well, I presume that it wouldn't run, because otherwise that's got to be underwritten. And the second point is that there's some discussion about who pays and if it's for Hamiltonians, should Hamiltonians pay. I understand that the targeted rate that would subsidise this is solely or largely Hamilton targeted rate anyway.
So yes, the second question is yes. The first question, for the 2023 service, we did include a point at which we decided that there had been strong enough interest to run the service. Because the service ended up being 100% sold, it didn't be an issue. I've priced this journey on a cost recovery basis based on 80% occupancy. You'll see from the tables that the costs to proceed at 60% or 100% were different from that. So I've picked the middle number. If we don't sell 80% of tickets, then the unwritten perhaps, but the statement here is that you would not run that service if you were to not cover your costs.
however, in point 9, we're saying we're still going to look for other funding sources. So if we were, let's say it was 60% occupancy at the $70, if we were able to get some additional funding through Balloons Over Waikato to offset that, then it could still go ahead, right?
It could, but that would be outside the realm of your resolution. We'd have to find, yeah, we could work on that. Yes.
That's what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah,
with
that's-
the resolution is that
Yeah.
9 allows.
Sorry, I need to get Noel back a mic. I've got the speaking
That's the
order.
purpose of 9 being there for me, to support 6.
Mm.
That if between
Yes.
now and when it goes to the market, Balloons Over Waikato or the council is able to work with
Explore,
partners
yeah.
to subsidise the fare, that allows that $70 to be reduced, or contribute to, kicks in at that 60% threshold or 80% threshold or whatever. So there needs to be a little bit of outside thinking and a little bit of, sleight of hand perhaps. But with what's going on from last year, full subsidy, people have trouble getting tickets. Fully subscribed train trip, people missing out on tickets and the likes. I'm confident that can happen. I just don't want the Waikato people to subsidise the train. But if there's organisations that will do 9, then 7 can be 6 can be adjusted accordingly. So I think you've got that in that resolution, Madam Chair.
I'm just looking to,
Suggested wording.
okay, you understand the intent that is trying to be achieved here, that we want to be able to offer this service. We don't want Waikato ratepayers subsidizing. But we still want it to go ahead as much as possible. And so if there is opportunity for somebody else to fund and lower that $70, not being us covering it,
Mhm.
then
So
we go ahead.
yes, my understanding of your direction is that you are happy for us to proceed with that effectively as a maximum fare, which we could reduce if we're able to secure external funding.
Yes. So do we want to say that then? Does, if we said maximum fare of $70 that can be reduced should 9 be achieved,
Yeah.
would that then would bring it within the realm of this resolution? Yes?
Yes.
To proceed, okay? All right, so the change would be in 6 that at a maximum of $70 return. And then where do I,
After recovery, subject to any subsidy
Unsold
achieved through item 9 below.
And so, Phil, if you could just comment, so if it didn't break even on that basis, it wouldn't go ahead, just making sure that that's very clear. At what point do you think you'd have to make it, there'd have to be a timeline, you'd have to make a call on it, and it wouldn't be an hour before the train leaves sort of thing. So how, logistically, how does that work for the team?
Well, if I think back to the discussions we had for the event in 2023, we offered the tickets for sale, I think, around 6 weeks beforehand, and we reviewed the sales at about 2 weeks beforehand, and we had passed the hurdle at that point. But I think we would want to provide well over a week's notice to people if they have to find another way of getting to the event, if they're not going to run the train.
right,
So
but
we'd make a call about 2 weeks before.
but 6 weeks ahead of the event is
when the tickets
is
went on sale.
like in March of next year or
It would be
late February?
It would be early to mid-February. Yeah.
Early to mid-February. So you've got between now and February to find somebody to fill 9.
Yeah.
Phil? I don't think it's a huge ask. All right, I do want to make sure everybody's had a chance to have a say. So I'm going to go to people who have not already spoken. I've got Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Oh, it was simply to point out that if only 60% of the train is loaded, you're actually no longer viable. You're running backwards. So you're going to have additional funds come from that other source. If you're setting the fee at $70, that's based on an 80% uptake.
Yes.
The concern is having to cancel it at the last minute. It's quite difficult. People have already booked and got themselves up, and we've done publicity. Yeah.
But it is at a maximum of 70. So if prior to I don't know, if in January there was just nobody else coming on board with number 9, you can offer it. Oh, I get your point though. You're saying that we put it out there at 70, but only 60% of it.
Madam Chair, I believe there's a failure in the maths anyway. And I'm happy to talk to that.
A failure in the math.
Mm.
Do I need to
And
get my
option 2.
had
No, you won't. I only had
Option.
fifth form maths, and what you just said I'd never do any good. So
Okay.
Just looking at $70 for a return trip for 200 people is $14,000. In this document, we're told that the return trips will cost $22,400. That is still a shortfall of $8,400. So it is not covering full cost.
I don't have a calculator in front of me, I'm afraid.
Take your shoes off.
It does say with the full option one, each of those tables on page 64 says that there's no deficit at 180 or 60. Is that correct?
So I've worked on the option one column all the way through those three tables is the 22,400 total cost divided by the patronage cell. So 400, 320 and 240.
No.
But you're still $70 return for 200 people. That only brings you in $14,000.
So I think what the calculation that the councillor's doing in his head is that it's is to 200 each way. So it goes 70 times 200 is $14,000, but you've done it on the basis of 70 times 400 and then 80% of it to get you 22,400.
Right.
So the
every
200 versus the 400, Phil, I think is what's
yes,
got to be.
so I've attempted,
explained.
everything here is about return trip to try and be consistent with those total costs. And that's including the 4 trips. So the 2 that are charged plus the 2 that are empty.
There's 200 up and 200 back. Or is it 400 up and 400 back?
22,400 is the cost.
No, 400
yeah.
people up or 200 people up.
So it's 200 each way.
Yeah,
Noted
so
in
it's
the
200 people buy a return ticket. It's not 400 people buying a return ticket.
It's 400 trips.
But you don't, this is $70 return. So you don't get $70 twice.
Okay, I think we're gonna just adjourn for a second, make sure we got our maths right. Let's get those calculators out.
Let's have a
And so we'll adjourn the meeting 10:40 for 10 minutes.
I think you need to have your school C accredited. You need to have your school. No, I think